Worldwide Ministries with the invocation. Bishop James.
Heavenly Father, we congregate this glorious evening and we count it joy that we can come together as one body, as your people, collectively with one agenda, and that is to lift up the kingdom of heaven and to bring glory unto you. Lord, allow us and grant us the heart, the drive, the determination to open our hearts as we all perceive differently, but bring us together as we can, as one body, embrace the challenges that lie before us as a people. And we thank you in advance for such a journey at such a time as this, that it is not by happen chance that all of us involved are involved, O God, because you said so. Even with differences, different of opinions, different backgrounds, different cultures, different education, different social statuses, we come together to ask your divine intervention as we continue to press as a community toward being that one body that gives you all the glory. We're so honored to participate through this journey, and we could not do it without you. We thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Here.
Mrs. Hoover.
Here.
Ms. Royce.
Here.
Mr. Kelsch.
Here.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Here.
Mr. Thompson. Here. Mr. Braden.
Here. All members present. Moving on to amendment of the agenda. Please be patient. I have 5 items. The first item we're going to add is J1, Economic Committee Report. Item J2, we are adding as the Housing Committee Report. Item Q2 will be a letter regarding water rates under communication. Item Q4 will be a letter from the Law Department regarding executive session. We're also adding an ordinance. That ordinance will be added to M3, but we will consider that after the executive session, and that ordinance is an ordinance authorizing the settlement of 2 lawsuits between the City of Norwood et al. And Pond Realty Company and declaring an emergency. That is all 5 items that I have. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to amend the agenda as stated.
Motion by Mr. Braden. May I have a second? Mr. Kelsch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelsch. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. The motion passes. Moving on to item F, minutes of previous meeting, November 8th, 2022, regular meeting. Mrs. Winterbauer.
Motion to receive the minutes.
Motion by Mrs. Winterbauer to receive the minutes. Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson. Mr. Braden.
All members present, voting aye. The motion passes. Moving on to item G, this evening we have a special presentation from Metro Bus Rapid Transit Study by the Southwest Ohio Regional Transit Authority, SORTA. The presenter is Steve Anderson, Director of Transit Development and Innovation. Is Mr. Anderson here this evening? He is not here, so we will move on to our next item, which is request to address council. I have one request to address council this evening. Bishop Sonny James.
Good evening. First and foremost, let me wish all of our residents and families a very awesome and incredible Thanksgiving season. We certainly are also grateful as a family since our house fire for the love and the support from those that understand how difficult it is at times like this. You know, today I was really heavy-hearted again because, you know, we are making strides as a people, and I get that. But we still have a long way to go. And when we talk about why is it that residents see things different than the way our council sees them? Because our council is led by a protocol that you have to fall in line with. And of course, we have many examples of this that are irrefutable and undeniable. The one that I am really agitated about is our diversity board. You know, as early as 2015, I presented the city with a 13-point plan to help diversify us as a community. One of the things that we still fail to realize is I absolutely can't stand it when peers outside of our community still waver into the old. I remember taking one of our council members to a local area, and I challenged him, and I said, here, you don't believe me? Ask those people over there. I don't know them. They don't know me. And one of the individuals, surprisingly to the council member, confirmed that there are people that still think we are living still back in the old ages. Guys, we have in our community awesome people. You'll never hear me complain about that. The issue that I have, though, is when awesome people, I don't care if it's the mayor or myself, the issue is when we have awesome people doing things that don't open equal opportunities for each and every citizen. And you might say, well, Bishop, why do you keep coming in here talking this nonsense? Let me give you a first-hand account. You all have the 13, or if you don't have it, there are people here that have it. In fact, Mr. Miracle and myself and others, there was a committee of a whole meeting. And the entire meeting was to talk about the 13-point plan. But yet, just yesterday, I received a phone call from someone representing this diversity board and says, well, no one has a copy of the plan. So I said, Lisa, that's hogwash. The plan has been out there because all you have to do is look and see some of the things already being attempted to be done. The issue is, as long as I'm not the one in front of it doing it, status quo says we're okay with that. I'll give you an example. My wife, to my knowledge, the only African-American woman closing out on her doctorate degree. But do you think the diversity board even reached out to her? Do you know how embarrassing that is? This same woman, when we designed movie theaters, our very own mayor asked my, at that time, 19-year-old son, why don't you give the program to him? Him and the police. We have a systemic issue here where people of color, unless they agree to come under the administration, they will never be given equal opportunities. So the mayor and his group, what do? They go and they take the movie idea and they do it. And they do it in the same park that we do, hearing every perspective, on the same day. So now we have this diversity board. I show up and told I can't come in. Guys, stop always looking for new people that have never done anything, never led anything, and they need you to teach them. I don't need you to teach me. You need to sit back, listen, and learn so that we can grow as a people. So I will be challenging the diversity board publicly so that we as a people can stop doing status quo.
Thank you, Bishop James.
God bless you.
That concludes our request to address council. I was just informed that Mr. Anderson from SORTA is here. Sir?
Good evening, City Council. There's a typo on that slide. My name is Steve Anderson. I'm the Director of Development and Innovation at SORTA Metro, your transit company here in the Hamilton County region. Tonight I'm going to come to you with a couple updates. The main crux of what I'm going to speak to this board about is bus rapid transit. That's a new innovative type of bus transit that seeks to mimic rail transit, but still combine the flexibility and cost efficiency of bus transit. So Reinventing Metro, issue 7 was supported by folks in this community. We're always very thankful. We always start out our meeting with this slide. It's obligatory. And my eyesight is not what it used to be, but those are some really good platitudes, all to say that we're trying to make Hamilton County, Cincinnati, Norwood, Pleasant Ridge, wherever you stand in the county, more economically competitive. Whether that's for major headquarters, folks looking to relocate here, as I did just 2 years ago. So we're excited about driving economic development engine using transit that is safe, efficient, and effective. Year 1, we've been able to do some things in an unprecedented era, the pandemic era. We've expanded our routes to 24/7. There's 7 routes, 2 of which cross this very area, Route 51. That's across town, and Route 4, which is Montgomery Road. They all 24/7. We've added frequency for some of the school times as well as late night and third shift work. And we're starting to see ridership really make a very nice rebound to the tune of 80 to 85%, which is pretty good. Most transit agencies are at 65, 70%. Some of the larger commuter agencies really haven't gotten back to half of that. In addition, we've been pulling out all the stops to get folks back on the buses. There's some new bus shelters, new benches that are coming out soon. A couple of the new shelters are right here at the Kroger across the street. We think they represent a massive upgrade as to what we had out there before. We'll be doing more of those with our own money. We won't need to rely on the ad contract moving forward. So this next slide is just some local route improvements that will be going into effect in the next couple of weeks, December 4th. The one that's shown here is the new Route 4 with the new Route 5. Route 4 has been servicing this corridor probably since the streetcar days. It was probably called Route 4 back then. We're adding new services that go out to Sharonville that you'll be able to transfer to. Areas that we've never actually provided local service to. We've always had some type of commuter service, but never all-day local service. So what we're trying to do is match the demand, match the travel flow. People are moving different than they did pre-pandemic, and we're playing catch-up. So we're really excited about that coming December 4th. The main issue that we're trying to do is connect folks to higher-paying jobs. Folks that live in Norwood, they're pretty well served by local routes, but can they get to the better-paying jobs, i.e. jobs that are paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 per year? So those services that were on the last slide, we feel that they're doing a better job of accessing Blue Ash, accessing Springdale, Forest Park, and the Fields Earl areas that have been traditionally difficult to get to. These are not without their challenges. We know we still have lack of sidewalks out in some of these communities, and we need to build that infrastructure. But if you build it, hopefully they will come. So that's local service. We're doing a lot of things at Metro at the same time. We compare it to trying to build a bicycle while you're riding it. part of this is our bus rapid transit and the theory of motion. Bus rapid transit, we have these in Indianapolis, Cleveland, Columbus has made an attempt at doing this. Indianapolis has done it pretty well, Cleveland's done it pretty well. This is basically a bus that acts like a train, right? So you make it the stations like train stations, you wrap them like train stations. Some buses even hide the wheels to make it look even more like a train. So what you're getting with that is a faster travel experience. Your regular bus, your Route 4 bus is going to go about 13 miles an hour. We're looking for buses that go 20 to 25 to 30 miles per hour. And the way you do that really is a combination of things. You know, you need the timing and the signals to align with the bus so the bus has priority. That's the bottom left corner. But the top right corner is where the rubber really hits the road when you're talking about a dedicated bus lane. So imagine this track that this train would operate on is a lane on Hamilton or Glenway or Montgomery. And that is where the hard work is really going to begin for SORTA, the city of Norwood, and other stakeholders. We like you, but do we like you enough to let you operate a dedicated lane in our community? We've already gotten some feedback that they're not looking too favorably on that. That's out in the burbs. That's to be expected. However, we would look and we would consider Norwood to have a vested interest in BRT wherever it goes. We're going to put more information out there in the next couple slides. But another nice amenity is the level boarding. If you've ever been on a train, you know that you roll right onto it. If you're in a mobility device or you're walking your bike on the bus, those are all things that we can kind of mimic the train feel and look. In addition to speed, you're talking about convenience. You know, our bus stops today, they're just basically a stick in the ground. You may have a bench, you may have a shelter. These are actual stations, and they're not going to be every block. They'd be probably, you know, half a mile to a mile, just so you're not stopping, more going. You're really only building stations at key nodes, key destinations. As far as the free Wi-Fi, we already have free Wi-Fi on all our buses, but the stations and the buses would have Wi-Fis. These are buses that are going to be the big, longer buses, be articulated, they'd be wrapped differently. You're probably talking about a different color scheme. They're going to set themselves apart where you'll know, oh, okay, that's BRT, that's not a regular bus. Everything we do that we touch has to be ADA accessible. We have to be federally compliant. The same level boarding I did touch on. But the real-time arrival information, this is really important. We have these at Government Square, Northside, and Oakley, some of our other transit centers. Every station would have these. Basically, it's telling you in real time when the bus is coming, so it's continually updating. And that's super helpful. We have folks that may not have access to cell phone or may not really like technology or trying to look at the phone. These signs can even announce, like a train station, red line coming, 5 minutes. I mean, we've all seen these if we've traveled out in some of our larger metros. So we're really excited about that. It's a lot of work, though. So I accidentally slipped finger here. The potential benefits are many. The social benefits, yes, travel times, more competitive with automobile. That's great as our seniors age in place, or we have kids that are opting not to drive or choosing to drive later, or for whatever reason folks don't have access to an automobile. But really, you're talking about the environmental impacts. We are going to pursue an alternative fuel source with this fleet. We don't know yet whether it's going to be some combination of electric, it could be hydrogen, or it could be some type of hybrid. But we are going to put out a clean fleet for this project. And then, you know, the noise. I mean, I don't know if you've been on an electric bus, but some of these buses are so quiet, they actually have to add noise to the bus so folks know it's coming. It's very quiet, so you barely know it's coming. I think the economic benefit is really the most significant here. When you put in a BRT, and we've seen this all around the country, investment does follow. Whether it's more dense residential, you talk about mixed use, folks want to live near these stations because they actually attract investment because they have a more sense of permanence. In addition, if we're going to build something in a corridor, we're going to have to redo the corridor anyway. You have to rip up the corridor. Talking about sidewalks, curb cuts, bike lanes, much more friendly pedestrian area. I did mention Cleveland prior. You see a photo here off to your right. That's Euclid Avenue in Cleveland. Before and then after in the bottom right. 2009, I think the health line went in. That picture was taken a few years later. You can see the transformation. You have a totally different sense of place compared to before Eugene, Oregon. Different type of urban setting. Then over here in Ohio, this is a college town with an urban growth boundary. But you can see on the left, the guy's walking in a no man's land. On a goat path, and to the right, that's what's called a center lane BRT, where the buses are actually on the center lane. The doors are on the left side. They can be on, you can have doors open on both sides, just like a train, so you're more flexible in terms of how you serve it. These are the maps. I don't know if folks have had a chance to get over to our website. These are the proposed BRT corridors. The orange is Glenway. That's our Route 33 local route primarily. The red is Hamilton, green is Reading, and the blue is Montgomery Road. All these corridors have their pros and their cons. I'll start with Montgomery. Montgomery is probably by far the most constructible if you're talking about not needing a bunch of right-of-way to take a lane. However, I would say ridership potential, it's probably not as strong as like a Glenway or Hamilton or a Reading, simply for the fact of the number of density, the jobs, and the other nodes that are served on the other lines. But all four are certainly worthy and would all be good additions. These are just the same slide in depth. You can see some of the nodes here on Glenway. You have Hamilton, it would go up Vine Street. That is a Reading Road, Montgomery. So our plan really is to take two of these for design and construction. We will know which two probably beginning of 2023. The next two that don't get picked will still receive some type of enhancement package. And that's not to preclude them from future BRT investment in the future. It's just we know that phase one, we have the feds that are willing to fund this at 80% for grant, fully funded. So we want to make sure the two are going to score the highest in terms of ridership, equity, connecting people, as well as building up the network underneath it. So the study process we're doing right now is night meetings like these. Last night I was in Northside. Two days before that we were at Findlay Market with no heat. Thank you, Cincinnati weather. Step one, these are what we're looking for in terms of what are the data points that we're trying to bring forth in order for this to move forward to the next step, which would be design. We want the ability to attract riders. You want the speed and the reliability, that's the right-of-way, that's the constructability, as well as equitable access. The step two part of this evaluation, of course, outreach is huge, getting community support, community buy-in. We have a stakeholder advisory committee. I believe somebody in your city is on that board. Forgive me, I don't know that person off the top of my head. But again, like I said, we'll be selecting two corridors to move forward to develop detailed designs and service plans. So this is really where you get with your engineers. How would these intersections look if BRT were to use either one lane, two lanes, or be in mixed traffic? That really is the rub. You can have a BRT that is, in mixed traffic. Folks call it BRT, but it's really not moving the needle in terms of getting folks to where they need quickly in a way that folks that have access to the car, like you and me and some other people, would actually forego their car, park at a park and ride transit into downtown or what have you. So the speed is really crucial. So I can't thank you guys enough for letting me come here and speak. This won't certainly be our last engagement with the city of Norwood. So you'll be on the lookout for us in the next couple of months. We'll be completing the BRT Phase 1 study, Q1 2023, probably January. We'll know which two. The BRT service to start in 2027, we have to do all those things on that slide there. You have design, you have construction, you have testing. It's a whole new mode. You have to train operators. You have to engage with other stakeholders as well. So we're really excited about it. It's going to be a generational game changer for Cincinnati, Norwood, Hamilton County. And with that, I just wanted to let you know that your voice matters. We have our website up. It's metrobrtstudy.com. We have a survey, about 600 folks already. Please let us know what you feel about it. If you want us to come out to your nonprofit, we'll do a bake sale, a cake sale, lemonade stand, you name it. We will come out and engage with your people. We're really excited to hear what people think. And these is a map of all the cities in our country that have some type of BRT. There's a lot of different flavors. Some of it is robust and some of it not so much. And yeah, we're excited. We're gonna probably go visit all these cities. We've done about a third of them. I was in Richmond last week learning do's and don'ts. to make sure we're putting something together that not only Cincinnati would be proud of to look at, but actually use. Because that's what we want to be. We want to be a useful transit system. And I don't have anything else. And thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, sir.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Moving on to item J1, Economic Committee, Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes, thank you. To the Honorable Council of the City of Norwood, Ohio, we, your Economic Development, to who was referred, we discussed the CRA agreement for PLK Quality Inn redevelopment. Basically just discuss the starting points to the CRA and the TIF agreement with the city. Currently waiting on agreement to be sent to Norwood City School District, so that will remain in economic development for now.
Mr. Thompson.
Will we receive and file the report?
Motion by Mr. Thompson to receive and file the report. Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, motion passes. Moving on to item J2, Housing. Mrs. Hoover.
Thank you, sir. To the Honorable Council of the City of Norwood, Ohio, we, your Committee of Housing, Health, and Public Safety, to whom was referred a resident concern regarding City Council meeting on 10/25/22, beg leave to submit the following report. We held the meeting to allow for another opportunity to address the complaints brought to council on 10/25/22. No other concerns were brought to council. Chief Kramer addressed the committee to review the process on filing complaints with the police department. No complaints were filed for concerns brought to council on that date. Respectfully submitted, Susan Hoover, Mrs. Winterbauer, Mr. Braden, Ms. Royce.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoover. Ms. Royce.
I move we receive and file the minutes.
Motion by Ms. Royce to receive and file. Mrs. Winterbauer.
A second?
Second by Mrs. Winterbauer. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson. Mr. Braden.
All members present, voting aye, motion passes. Moving on to item K, third reading of ordinances and resolutions. Item K1, ordinance authorizing hearing officers to consider the appeals of administrative decisions, including any appeals of 45-2022, findings about chronic nuisance properties, and providing rules regarding those hearing officers. Mr. Kelch.
I'll make a motion we have the third reading.
Motion by Mr. Kelch to have the third reading. May I have a second? Ms. Royce?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Royce. Any discussion? Mr. Braden?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Can somebody give me a brief overview of exactly what this, I just must have missed this. Can anybody explain what we're voting on here?
Mr. Kelch?
Maybe our law director, Mr. Moore, might be able to have a little bit more insight.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. President. So when council passed the chronic nuisance ordinance last council, if you're going to do something, you have to provide an appeal right. And what was included in that was a chronic nuisance oversight board or appeals board that was appointed by different people. And the conversations that the various members of council had this year were that, no, we should have a different kind of setup. That's a goofy way to do it. So this creates the position of a hearing officer. And primarily to hear if someone is, okay, you've been cited for gotten the notice that you have a chronic nuisance property, and okay, there's something else that's happened, so we're going to impose a civil penalty on you. Then that person, that owner, can appeal that finding to a hearing officer. I don't think that's right. So this sets up, we don't have administrative hearing officers, and there's been a number of things where, well, why don't we set up this kind of thing within the city of Norwood the way Cincinnati does it? Well, Cincinnati has a whole, they have administrative hearing, they're full-time positions, and that's what they do. But this creates one, and so the mayor, this empowers the mayor to appoint a person as a hearing officer to hear appeals in situations like this. The one that exists now would be for chronic nuisance findings. Potentially, it could be for other issues, but it sets up that position. It sets up some ethics rules. You can't have anybody, you can't hear something involves your brother-in-law or somebody you're in business with. It has ethics rules, it has procedural rules, but that's what it does, is it sets up essentially kind of like a mayor's court magistrate sort of kind of situation for civil matters. And that's what this does. If we're going to have the chronic nuisance ordinance the way it was passed earlier, the amended version was passed earlier this year, then we need to create this position.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Follow up.
Mr. Braden?
Thank you. Appreciate that. If you don't mind, a question
Yeah.
through the chair.
Mr. Braden?
So,
Will you please,
Sure.
so everyone can hear you. Thank you.
so yeah, I mean, I guess my thing is I as far as I voted no on the ordinance, just because I'm thinking it's a little bit overreach. So, I guess I'm just trying to decide whether or not I'm, that's it. That's all my comments. Let me work that out through my own mind. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Any other discussion? We have a motion by Mr. Kelch. We have a second by Ms. Royce, to have a third reading. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover,
Yes.
Ms. Royce,
Yes.
Mr. Kels,
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes.
Ordinance authorizing hearing officers to consider the appeals of administrative decisions, including any appeals of 45-2022, findings about chronic nuisance properties, and providing rules regarding those hearing officers.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. Mr. Kelch.
Make a motion that we pass the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Kelch to pass the ordinance. Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs.
Oh, sorry,
Fran-
Mrs. Franzen.
Oh, no, sorry, I was not
Oh, okay.
scratching my head. My bad.
Mrs. Franzen,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover,
Yes.
Ms. Royce,
Yes.
Mr. Kels,
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the ordinance passes. Moving on to item M, introductory reading of ordinances and resolutions. M1, ordinance to change the appropriations for the year 2022 and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Winterbauer.
Motion to suspend the rules and have all three readings?
Motion by Mrs. Winterbauer to suspend the rules and have all three readings. Mr. Thompson.
I will second that.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, so these are just the kind of changes that happen on a fairly regular basis, but as we're getting close here to the end of the year, probably the next couple of meetings too, we'll be having more of these as final balances are calculated on all the different funds. And if there's any kind of administration needs that come up that haven't been accounted for yet. So this is just a normal kind of appropriation change, and we will be having more of them.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Anyone else? Motion by Mrs. Winterbauer, second by Mr. Thompson, suspend the rules and have all three readings. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover,
Yes.
Ms. Royce,
Yes.
Mr. Kelch,
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes.
Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2022 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2022 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2022 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. Mrs. Franzen.
I move that we pass the ordinance.
Motion by Mrs. Franzen to pass the ordinance. Mr. Braden?
Second.
Second by Mr. Braden. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the ordinance passes. Moving on to item M2, ordinance adopting a capitalization policy for the city of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Winterbauer.
Motion to suspend the rules and have all three readings?
Motion by Mrs. Winterbauer to suspend the rules and have all three readings. May I have a second? Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes.
Ordinance adopting a capitalization policy for the City of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Ordinance adopting a capitalization policy for the City of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Ordinance adopting a capitalization policy for the City of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Mrs. Winterbauer.
Motion to pass the ordinance?
Motion by Mrs. Winterbauer to pass the ordinance. May I have a second? Mr. Braden.
Second.
Second by Mr. Braden. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present voting aye, the ordinance passes. Moving on to item N, administrative reports. Mayor Schneider.
Already. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President and members of council. It's nice to be in our temporary location. I don't know if you had a chance to step into council chambers. There's already been a lot of work done, and as you can see, it's sort of taking shape and some of the stuff that'll happen in the future. Actually, this is working out pretty well for now. I'm surprised at how nicely it turned out, so it seems like we're sitting very close, which is nice too. And we're in an intimate setting. I did want to touch base about Metro and SORTA. You know, they have already we've already won some of that grant money. This is tax money that they passed an issue on, and we have already been approved for some of the Montgomery Road improvements that'll take place, pedestrian safety improvements and different things. It's important to understand when he talked about transit-dependent people. And, you know, one of the things that we in the United States feel, we were made to think everybody had to have a car. You have to have a car to thrive in the United States. And that's not true. And it shouldn't be true. And, you know, SORTA and public transportation like this is being revitalized all over our country for many reasons. And, you know, some people don't want to drive a car. They really just don't want to. They can ride a bike, they can get around. And it's just more options for us, whether our kids want to drive cars or whether they want to live on a bus line and they can go from point A to point B. I know I love riding the bus down to Bengals games and to Reds games and downtown events. It's so nice to be able to do that. So, you know, that whole system was dismantled. It used to be that Norwood had a absolutely thriving downtown area because the streetcars came downtown, and that's exactly what you did. So bringing some of this back is really important to me, and I think it's important to the country. Most of the people in the country are interested in this. I also think when you look at ADA compliance, you know, there are so many people that have that are faced with different physical challenges. And when he mentioned, you know, all of this has to be ADA compliant. It upgrades and improves our accessibility all throughout the cities where Metro is performing. And then job connection. You know, the way we're going to keep, and the reason why Norwood had such good job and manufacturing plants and all the stuff that was going, because we had the transportation infrastructure. They picked up people all over Hamilton County and brought them into Norwood, and all of our businesses knew that. So, you know, it's nothing but good what they are trying to do to help move people, to help connect people. So that's an important part of it. Talk a little bit about projects that are going on, projects that are in the works. You know, city council chamber improvement, that's going on right now. The timeline, I think the goal is that we will be in that new council chamber the end of February, March timeframe. So we'll be here for a little while. But I think it'll be well worth it. We'll be able to hear each other. It's nice. I think they did a great job with the sound system in here. We can hear everything. This is a much bigger area, but they did a much better job getting the sound to us here. Of course, we don't have the air conditioners running. Every time that air conditioner kicked on, we couldn't hear anything. The senior center, the community center, there's improvements being made there. Right now, they are rebuilding the the access ramp that goes down to the lower level at the community center, senior center. I didn't say that. It's the lower level, but they're redoing that. It's been needed an upgrade for quite a while, so they're working on that. At the recreation center, they are working on some ADA compliance issues there. They're putting in the ramp on the side. We've heard Mr. Gabbard, the recreation director, tell us about what's going on there, and they're improving the bathrooms and improving the ADA compliance there. The pool, the swim pool, the indoor swim pool is open. They have free swim, lap swimming. I shouldn't say free, I should say open swimming, lap swimming, and they have the water aerobics going on, and then all sorts of winter programming going on. Also, I think they've got some gift certificates that you can purchase for family members. If you have, my mother used to always purchase a gift certificate for our family for the museum center or for Cincinnati Zoo. This is a great opportunity to buy something for a family in the city of Norwood so they can utilize the resources of the recreation department. So talk to them at the office about that. And then I will tell you that after a swim, there's a really nice sauna at our recreation. You can set that sauna up to really clear you up, and it's a nice sauna. So don't pass that by if you get the opportunity. You do have to turn the button, and it works on a timer, so it's not running constantly. You do have to, what I did was hit the button, then go swim a few laps, and then you can get in the sauna. It's nice. It's really nice, I'm telling you. We have police headquarters improvements going on. I don't know if the dumpster's next to the police headquarters still or not. I think they've finished with all the demo, but increasing the facilities to be utilized by our female police officers also. So some nice improvements going on there. Fire department, I don't know if any of you went past, but the fire department got some new concrete, and they're continuing to keep that upkeep and maintain that property very well. And then the last part is, and I think a few of you were council members at the time that we sort of came up with this electric vehicle initiative. We wanted to try to promote some electric vehicle use. We were lucky enough to get a grant to put in our public charging station for the electric vehicles that's right here by the school. That was grant money that paid for that. Within that grant, we were able to put a charging station here at City Hall. So now we have one electric vehicle that's running. We haven't been to the gas pump yet with that car. It doesn't have a gas tank. But it's running well, and hopefully we can add another electric vehicle to our fleet in the future, get us off of the gasoline, which would be nice. Right now, it's being utilized by the building department people, but we hope to get that maybe going with the water department also. And then another big one, improvement that's going on, and some of you you will start hearing about it, is the new water meters are being installed. They started installing the new water meters. And that's going to be a huge change for our community and the way that we can really, I'll say, conserve water, because it's going to give us better readings. And when somebody has a problem with their water inside their home, we're going to be able to get a reading and get information to them and try to get things fixed prior to it being a huge bill that they get hit with, and we get a black eye because we couldn't provide them really the level of service they deserve. So that's a big one. The last part I had, and I apologize, I'm sort of going along, but how to contact the city of Norwood. Recently, we've heard people talk about, I called the mayor or I called City Hall multiple times and nobody will call me back. And it's important to understand that, every telephone call that comes in, every voicemail that comes in actually ends up being an email. So all of my messages come in to my phone, and there's a light on my phone, just like anybody else's office phone. There's a light that says there's a voicemail. But I can look at my emails, and I can be anywhere, and I can see there's 3 emails, and they're voice messages, and we keep track of those. So there is really a pretty nice system that we have in place to make sure that we are calling people back. And our goal is to call people back. The last thing we want to do is, why would we ignore people who call City Hall? Now, the first thing you should be doing is really calling into if you don't know who you should be calling, call into the general information line, 513-458-4500. That number is answered through the day, it's answered, and they can direct you. They can help you understand where you should be going. Calling the mayor to complain about your tax bill is probably not going to be that good, because all I'm going to do is say, well, that's taken care of in the tax department. I'm the mayor. I don't take care of your tax bill. that gets frustrating. They feel like but calling the mayor's office for every one of your problems is really not the way to do it. And I know I'm looking at all the council members, but I should be looking at a camera somewhere because people have to recognize who to call. And we have a really robust website. We have a great website. It has all sorts of information on who to call and what kind of information or what kind of help you need. You can actually narrow it down so that when you call the city, you've got the right thing. We put See-Click-Fix in place. So if you're out and you see something in one of the parks or you see something around the city that we want you to place an order on See-Click-Fix that goes directly to our Public Works Department. That'll be if you call me and say, hey, I got a pothole in front of my house, you need to fix it. I've still got to figure out where are we talking, what are we doing? I've got to send it to the right people. They've got to figure it out. If you put it on See-Click-Fix, you're going to get a quicker response. You're going to get an email back saying it's taken care of. If it's not taken care of on See-Click-Fix system, you say, no, it's not taken care of, and the guys get another and say, oh, well, we must have missed that one. We better go hit it again. So there are a lot of really good communication tools to utilize within the city of Norwood. If people are coming to me and saying, hey, I called you 5 times, I'm like, what number did you call? Who'd you call? Because I don't have 5 messages from you. I don't have 5 notifications on my phone. We're pretty tech savvy here now in the city. I think we've done a pretty good job at communicating with people. So, and if you're, as a council member, if somebody's saying, I called the mayor 5 times, email me, call me. I answer my phone and I'll call you back. And the safety service director will call you back. All of us will call people back. We'd rather call them and find out what the problem is and try to help. That's really what I'm trying to say. So the number 513-458-4500 is the general line. Or you can go to www.norwoodohio, all one word, .gov, like government, Norwood, all one word, .gov. And go to our website. It's all right there. There's a lot of good information that people, I think, are overlooking at times. But we try our best to call you. We've really pushed to be customer service driven here at City Hall. We're not the BMV. I shouldn't say that because a lot of BMVs have gotten better too. So, okay, well, that's all I had. I apologize if I took more time than you guys really wanted me to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions or comments for Mayor Schneider? Thank you again, Mayor. Moving on to item, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business this evening? Mrs. Hoover.
I do. Thank you very much, sir. I am very excited to bring forth the individuals for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Board. I wanted to give a little bit of background. It seems like there's still a little confusion on what the process looked like, and I just wanted to share that when I first decided to run for council, this was something that I wanted to do and create, and did a lot of research. Unfortunately, there is not a guidebook out there. This is what it looks like. So I sort of Frankenstein from lots of different municipalities, different governments, different companies, and created what I felt was the best fit for our city. So I did pass the resolution, we passed the resolution back in August the 9th to create the board. And then we sent out requests for letters of interest. I very specifically did not target people or specifically request from people because I wanted it to be exactly diverse and inclusive. What we did was we sort of shot a wide net. We put it on the city website, social media, it was at the library, coffee shops, the community center, the rec, Kroger, the health department. It was really all over. From that, we got some letters of interest back. We did, and this is for residents, excuse me, a requirement for the residents were that they had to live in the city of Norwood. So we did get some letters from folks who were very interested, very qualified people, but for the resident component, we did need them to be residents. So of the 7 folks for the board, there are 2 city council members who we'd like to put forward. It would be me, myself, Susan Hoover. I would request that I would be for the 2-year term. Mr. Kelch is interested for the 1-year term. For the city employee, we have Keith Hamrick. He is Norwood's Human Resources Director.
For a little background on him, he has a master's degree in business and organizational management, and he actually helped create the Norwood HR department. Excuse me, I'm going to cough again. Sorry, it's not COVID. And for him, for the 2-year term. And then for the 1 year, Jennifer Green, she's the project manager for the Norwood Department of Health. She has a tremendous focus on community engagement. She's also a retired Army military vet. She's an amazing woman. I'm very excited. Unfortunately, they were not able to be here. Keith's out of town already, and Jennifer is celebrating conjoining families in Hawaii, so whatever. I just gave her a pass. I'm very excited our 3 residents are here. I would love for them to come up just so we could see their beautiful faces. We have, for the 3-year position, I am recommending Ashton Tucker. She is an assistant prosecuting attorney for the city of Cincinnati. She served as senior articles editor for the Human Rights Quarterly. She was a vice president of the UC Law Out and Allies and president of the UC chapter of If, When, How, Lawyering for Reproductive Justice. She works with a wide range of folks in her day-to-day work. For the 2-year position, Stephanie Bacher is the coordinator for solid waste and recycling for the city of Covington. She actually currently serves on the city of Covington's DEI committee, and she has a strong background in marketing and communication. She's already sending me emails about some of the exciting things that Covington's doing. Keep it up, I don't hate. They are doing some really interesting things, in particular with some of their Spanish-speaking residents in Covington. And last but certainly not least, for the 1-year position, we have Derek Robinson. Derek is a small business owner. He has his own speech therapy practice. He also has a degree in music education, so I'm trying to get him to teach me some things on the side. These individuals they're very, very different, but what they share, the 3 of them, is a passion for diversity and inclusion. They all impressed the interview team with their strong communication skills. All 3 of them have experience working with a wide range of people. All 3 of them have a real focus on working collaboratively and have a lot of great ideas. Collectively as a board, the 7 of us, we are Black, white, gay, straight, married, homeowners, single, dare I say renters, homeowners. There's no such thing as a perfect diversity, but we are a pretty amazing group of very different folks coming together with a really shared vision. And I'm so very excited. So I want to thank you so much for coming. We have so much work ahead of us, and they are signing up. They know it's ahead of them, and they are ready for the challenge. So thank you very much. So I would like to make a motion that we accept these, or what would the verbiage be? Adopt these individuals for the positions of the board.
We have a motion by Mrs. Hoover to adopt these individuals as members of the board.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir. All members present, voting aye. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoover. Is there any other unfinished business this evening to discuss? Then we'll move on to new business. Any new business this evening? Mr. Thompson?
I'm going to call a get-together of the Charter Committee meeting on December 12th. It's Monday at 6 o'clock. Been coordinating schedules with some speakers, so that's when, looking like we're setting that up tentatively in the hopes that as it gets closer, we can firm it up. December 12th at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Anyone else? Any other new business this evening? Mrs. Franzen?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know that We've had a really great response to the park survey, so I'm going to be presenting the results of that in 3 weeks. I've emailed Mr. Miracle about giving a presentation to show you guys what we found and what the next steps are as far as timeline for getting some of these improvements done. So very excited. I'm going to be meeting with the folks in the administration beforehand to kind of talk to them as well, and hopefully have a nice, easy 10, 15-minute presentation here in 3 weeks. Just letting you know. I'm very happy, excited. Yay.
Thank you, Mrs. Franzen. Anyone else? Any other new business? Well, then we'll move on. We'll move on to communications. Q1, playing card partners regarding application for Norwood Entertainment District. Mr. Gears.
Dear Mayor and City Council, pursuant to and in accordance with Section 4301.80 of the Ohio Revised Code, enclosed herewith is an application from our client, Playing Card Partners, LLC, for the establishment of a community entertainment district within the city of Norwood. As indicated in the enclosed application, the proposed community entertainment district is referred to as the Norwood Community Entertainment District. The enclosed application includes a cover letter from Nick Lingenfelter, who is a member and authorized representative of the applicant, Playing Card Partners, LLC. The enclosed community entertainment district application is being submitted by Playing Card Partners, LLC, which is the owner of a portion of the property within the boundaries of the proposed Norwood Community Entertainment District. The application contains all of the information and documentation required under Section 4301.80B of the Ohio Revised Code for such an application. Should you have any questions about the enclosed community entertainment district application, or should you need any further information, you are welcome to contact the undersigned, or you may contact Mr. Lingenfelter. His contact information is provided directly below. Nick Lingenfelter, member and authorized representative of Playing Card Partners, LLC, 513-259-8629, or fax 513-561-4687. Email is nick@plkcommunities.com. Mailing address 5905 East Galbraith Road, Suite 4100, Cincinnati, Ohio 45236. For your reference, I note that the procedures for a municipal corporation's handling and approval of a community entertainment district application are set forth in Section 4301.80C of the Ohio Revised Code. Thank you in advance for your attention to this application for the establishment of the Norwood Community Entertainment District. Again, please contact me or Mr. Lingenfelter if you have any questions or need any additional information. Sincerely, Jonathan M. Hiltz, partner.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to accept and file the communications.
Motion by Mr. Brady. May I have a second? Ms. Royce?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Royce. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, motion passes. Moving on to item G2, letter regarding the water rates.
Dear President and members of Norwood City Council, I have enclosed a copy of the ordinance from the City of Cincinnati raising the water meter rates to the City of Norwood by 5.55%. Norwood Ordinance 20-1992 states the Director of Public Service shall levy and assess charges in a sufficient amount to pay the current operating expenses and cost of permanent improvements to the city waterworks or water system on an annual basis. The Director of Public Service shall notify council in written form of every increase in water charges or assessments at least 30 days prior to the implementation of the same. With regard to the above, the City of Norwood water rates will be increased by 5.55% beginning on January 1, 2023. We are working diligently to continue improving our water service throughout the city, and keeping customer rates in line with purchasing rates is of the utmost importance. I have also attached information regarding the CAP program for low-income seniors to assist with this rate increase. Sincerely, Noah Powers, Safety Service Director.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. Mr. Thompson.
Move we receive and file the letter.
Motion by Mr. Thompson to receive and file the letter. May I have a second? Mrs. Winterbauer.
Second?
second by Mrs. Winterbauer. Any discussion? Mrs. Hoover?
I just had a question about how this information about the CAP program is going to be made available to our seniors. Maybe that's a question for Mr. Powers.
Mr. Powers?
This is something that's available now and has been available in the water department. So anybody who would need it could contact them. They could get a copy of that and make that application. I wanted to go ahead and include it here to kind of raise awareness of it, as we are looking at having that 5.55% increase. And Cincinnati's ordinance, if you take a look through that, is looking at increases in 24, 25, and 26 at the same rate. So
Could
I
we
thought
get-
that information was good to get out here.
Absolutely. Would it be possible to put this on our website?
It may already be there. I'll look.
All right, thank you, sir.
If it isn't, it is possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Thank you, Mrs. Hoover.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. The motion passes. Moving on to item Q3.
Dear members of council, we write to ask that the council consider holding an executive session at its regularly scheduled meeting this Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022, as permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G3, so that we may confer with the council concerning a matter involving the city of Norwood that is the subject of pending court action. If you have any questions or comments about this request, please feel free to contact the law department. Sincerely, Keith Moore, Law Director, Tim Gary, Assistant Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. Years. Mr. Thompson?
I would move that we receive and file the letter and after enter into executive session so that we may discuss a matter involving the city of Norwood that is subject of pending court action.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. May I have a second? Mrs. Hoover?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. The motion passes. We are now in executive session. And we are out of executive session at 8:44. Moving on to item M3. Item M3, ordinance authorizing the settlement of two lawsuits between the City of Norwood et al. And Pond Realty Company and declaring an emergency. Mr. Thompson?
Move we suspend the rules and have all three readings.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Kelch to suspend the
Yes.
rules and have all three readings. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes.
Ordinance authorizing the settlement of two lawsuits between the City of Norwood et al. And Pond Realty Company and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the settlement of two lawsuits between the City of Norwood et al. And Pond Realty Company and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the settlement of two lawsuits between the City of Norwood et al. And Pond Realty Company and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. Mrs. Winterbauer.
Motion to pass the ordinance?
Motion by Mrs. Winterbauer to pass the ordinance. Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye, the ordinance passes. Moving on to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Braden. Mrs. Franzen?
I second.
Second by Mrs. Franzen. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mrs. Winterbauer?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
All members present, voting aye. Motion passes. We're adjourned.